Hi, it's Elena Kapunick here, and today we have Karl Mollison with us, who will be doing a channeling session with me of my higher self, some of the experiences I've had in the Secret Space Program and the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate on some of the Mars bases, Moon bases, and other space station platforms. Welcome, Karl.
Thank you, Elena. I'm very happy to be here and to be of service. I know you want me to talk a little bit about who I am, what I do. This is a new collaboration for you and I, and we just know each other through a mutual acquaintance, and there's no prior history here as far as that goes. And so I'm revenue neutral. You're a client like any other I would work with. So I have a variety of things that I focus on. I am first and foremost a healer, and I want to bring a better process and caliber of healing to the world. That's one of my goals, and I work hard at refining a protocol I use for remote healing work. And because of the things going on in our realm, it's grown to encompass lots of spirit issues, because there are spirit meddlers infesting most people. And we also have this overlay of extraterrestrial involvement, and they too are sending spirits here, and they're working with the dark spirits to entrain them and to target them towards particular individuals. So the ETs mess with us in all sorts of ways, directly and indirectly. So I just encounter this when I work on people, because I can see those energies and the involvements, and they have to be reckoned with. So I do a lot of remote healing, spirit releasement work, spirit rescue work for spirits that are trapped in the earthbound plane and haven't made it to the light. That happens about a third of the time. Most people are shocked in learning that, but it is true, and it's what I see. And then I do one-on-one healing sessions for people, often by the phone. I work with people all over and do a couple of different really helpful techniques for resolving trauma memories and to do negative self-limiting belief replacement work. So that's in a nutshell. And to do the channeling, I use a trance state, and I have opened it up to others now to be available to channel loved ones in the light. This goes a step beyond the typical psychic medium interplay, where the person can have a direct conversation with their loved one, because I can channel them and speak for them, and their words come through me. So it's an actual conversation. So in the same way, I can channel an individual's higher self, and that has turned out to be extremely rewarding, because the higher self is still not fully appreciated as to its range and power in helping their being that they are a part of. They have limits on what they can do, just like the divine realm, because we're supposed to be in charge of ourselves down here. And so we're making up the rules as we go along oftentimes, and stumbling around quite a good deal. But we do have divine support, but we need to ask for it. And it's the same for the higher self. The higher self won't just rush in and do all it can. It's not allowed to. But we can reach out to it and appeal to it for information, for support, for healing, for guidance, for safety. And it can add to all of those things on our behalf. So this is a service that I offer to people. I give them some pointers. I give them a list of suggested questions and requests they can make, so they get as much juice out of the orange as possible, so to speak. So that's what I'm about. And I know you in particular want to do some fact finding, and so here we go. Your higher self is with you 24/7. So it knows your history. It knows all you've been through. And it knows a lot about you in depth. So this will be interesting. See what we can unearth together. I know there are always some limits on what the divine realm will share with people for many reasons. And I think that's true of the higher self as well. its charter is to do no harm. So if it needs to shield you from certain tough truths, it might do that. So it won't be a cause directly itself of perturbing you in some way that could have karmic negative consequences. So, you know, there are certain caveats here. So we'll just do an exploration and see what happens.
Yeah, I understand that, like, some questions the higher self will say, I can't answer that for one reason or another. Sometimes they'll say that, but you know, I'm open-minded to anything. I've talked to my higher self before, so for me, I'm really open to what comes through, and to just be open-minded and non-biased in what information we'll find, and also to ask for some healing in the process along the way, if it's for the highest good.
Yeah, excellent, because this is something that is no accident, as it turns out, that we are feeling disconnected from our higher selves, because it is literally true. That is because of tinkering that's been done to us, to subjugate us, to disconnect us, and also, of course, to the divine realm as well. So this is your birthright, to have your best buddy partnering with you in a direct kind of dynamic interaction. And it's the same with the higher realms, that we should be talking to spirits and talking to Creator. And the fact we're not is because we've been messed with, and we're working to change this paradigm back to what it was meant to be. But in the meantime, individuals can work on themselves and ask for help with that and undo a lot of that alteration themselves for their own personal gain. So this is an ongoing drama, and everyone can work for the greater good. If you help yourself, you'll help others too. If you want to improve the whole of the collective, ask the divine realm to help all of us. This counts. Everybody can contribute to this. This is what the shift in consciousness is all about, that most people now are aware of who would be listening to a program like yours. So I'm doing my thing, and I invite others to contribute also.
And to be open-minded in the belief that anything is possible and anything can be explored. Like, your mind needs to be open to the aspect for this to be helpful. That's what I've learned from your document that you sent me, your 8-page document on preparing for what the channeling is, how it works, what you can get out of it, the benefits. To just be open-minded and willing to let the healing in if it's for the highest good, or the information that comes in.
Yes, that's a very important part. There are two things that are key. One is to reach out and request assistance. If you don't, they'll leave you alone. You'll be on your own totally, your whole life long. And they're happy to let you have that experience. It's part of learning and growth anyway, and we're going to get a lot of hard knocks in this place, so that's nothing different. It's just a kind of an extreme deprivation that you will go through. But this has been the ordinary experience for most people through all of history, to be disconnected totally. And to sometimes make a token outreach if they're religious in one life or another, and so on, but not with a lot of confidence they're being listened to and that sort of thing. And that's true today. So that's the first thing. Invite participation. Invite the divine realm to partner with you and your higher self in as many ways as can be allowed. And then the second thing is you have to have belief. If you don't believe, forget it. You know, a half-hearted request will get a half-hearted response. They interact in proportion to our readiness and to our belief in the possibility. And that includes belief in the self to some extent, that you're worthy and deserving, and that it's safe to do this. And many people are closed down intuitively because of safety fears that are deeply held in the subconscious, because they've gone through horrible times. And they're afraid now to have the same thing happen, and they're afraid to reach out to the divine realm because they know historically this has caused them trouble in the past. And now they're afraid to do it. And that can get in the way also. Because we'll be allowed to curl up in a ball and and sit in the corner. You know, it's our choice. So this is, it's just to give people a perspective that this is not just cut and dried. It's not just like dialing a phone and God picks up the other end and you're fine. You know, you got a good connection. There's no barriers. Anything goes, and they can ask for the moon and get the moon. It's not so simple. There's a lot of blocks and adjustments and growth limitations that may come into play. And also the fact other people are watching can influence things as well. The divine realm will not interfere with people's disbelief. So they won't give you the winning lotto number for the $100 million jackpot, you know, because God wants you to know, and then, you know, have a big splash in the news, you see, because that would interfere with the disbelievers and shake them up potentially. So that's why most miracles are small miracles. They're personal, very personal. And that's for a reason, to respect the process and where everyone is at.
For sure.
We're going to shake things up, not the divine realm. But they are helping. Don't get me wrong. They are helping. Every time you have a happy thought, they can give you a pat on the back and encourage that. And that will put some wind into your sails and carry you forward. And that's how the shift is being done. It's being done on a very personal level for each and every individual who are open at all. They get a little encouragement. And that is what's making the difference. But you have to do your part, that's all.
Yeah, do your own work too, because it took me like 4 days to create the questions that I'll ask through of my higher self through the channeling process that you're facilitating. And I came up with 17 questions, and within those 17 questions, there are smaller questions. So, and I just grouped it according to priority and what the group question is. Just putting in my own work to get as much out of this as I can for my benefit and for others' benefit, whoever's listening possibly, so they can learn something from this experience and, you know, get in touch with you. How can we get in touch with you for your services?
Well, I have a website, teamarchangel.com. It's all one string, and it has my contact info, and you can find me there. And you'll see the various things that I offer. I have another website about my one-on-one healing work. That's mindbodyadvances.com. And I have those two hats that I wear. The latter is more mainstream. It's psychology-based techniques, but I do spiritual techniques as well. And I don't make a big deal about that because I deal with a lot of mainstream folk who are secular and who are science-oriented and so on. And I have a scientific background. I'm comfortable in that arena. And I can explain what I do in mechanistic terms that are perfectly in alignment with known neuroscience. The techniques have not been adopted yet by the mainstream. They're very cutting edge. But I understand the mechanism, and I can explain it to people. I could explain it to a psychologist or a psychiatrist as well in scientific terms. So all of the paranormal things have a logical scientific basis. They're real. They're various types of energetic phenomena. And it's just we don't understand certain types of energy yet that leaves them in this mysterious category.
Exactly.
But everything is going to be understood one day. You know, at least much, much better than we know it right now.
Yeah, and this session perhaps will help people to understand the aspect of channeling and how to connect with the higher self, because this for me is like an example, not to just myself, but to others, maybe to learn from it something, to get something out of it.
Yeah.
A good experience.
And the thing that I would point out for those who are going to watch this is that what you and I are doing, and you talking to the higher self and the higher self coming through me, Each and every one of them can do. They can talk to the higher self. They can ask things and make requests of the higher self. They can ask the higher self to help guide them and give them some information, give them inspiration, give them hints, send them messages. They may not be able to hear the higher self talking back to them. Most likely they won't, unless they're already a channeler. You know, that's the typical human experience. You're kind of closed off and you don't hear the divine voices. But that doesn't mean they can't act on their end to request things and to ask for help, because again, that's key. Mm-hmm. So they could do at least the personal half of the conversation. Exactly. And then trust and believe that something good will happen, and it will.
Yeah. I've heard my higher self talking to myself, because I said, what kind of questions should I ask in the channeling session with Karl? And my higher self said, this. She gave me a huge list. Okay, yeah, sure, I'll go with it. Yeah. So I could hear my higher self in a female voice talking to me and saying, well, you had this person come in, you've had this person come in, Werner von Braun and Nikola Tesla. So include that in your questions, because that's important, as it was part of your 16 back in the space program. So I just included that in and listened to the higher self, because I trust in my higher self to do that. So, you know.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, you're extraordinary in your capabilities. So, but people, I can assure, can get through. They will be heard. Even if they don't sense any reply, it's okay. Most people don't get any reply when they talk to Creator, if they're doing a prayer, if they're religious, for example, or spiritual, and they're reaching out to Source or the highest power of the universe, whatever they think of as that being or consciousness. But I can tell you there's tons of healers doing things like DNA theta healing, who are taught to talk with Creator to make requests for all the healing steps and witness it. And if you start doing that, you will start getting feedback from Creator. Mm-hmm. And you'll get little things, little messages and little visions of things, or sense things with your body if you're more kinesthetic. That's God talking to you. And people, you know, without having expectation that it's possible, will find that it starts happening. Why? Because they want it to, and they're asking, and they're opening themselves to allow it. And they're just building the expectation up enough that that can happen.
Yeah, it's happened to me too. I've seen a few people's individuals auric field, and I call it just being medical intuitive, and seeing what's out of alignment, out of balance. And then I say, well, how have you been feeling? Like, how are your eyes doing? And then I'll just ask that, and if they say, oh yeah, there's this going on, and then I'll get into a conversation with them with what I've seen, if they're open to it. So it's
excellent.
I believe in the Creator, in the Source, and I believe we're connected with the divine realms and the universe. So to me, if I get something, if I get a message from any of them, I'll go with it, because to me that's normal and comfortable.
Well, people just have no clue about what's possible. Most people. And people who do a little intuitive sensing become believers because they see it for themselves. Mm-hmm. So those who are still kind of shut down, you know, I feel for them, because I was there once. And I always kind of believed in ESP. I never thought I'd be able to do it. So here I am now. This is what I do for a living largely. I do mostly intuitive work of various kinds. So anything is possible. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we're not able to do that routinely, all of us, is no accident. And the fact that it's being poo-pooed by science and so forth is no accident. That is all deliberate. There's a deliberate suppression of awareness. So the scientists are being suppressed in their thoughts. This is a thought control, a mind control program to keep them focused away from any alternative explanation for the unusual and to not explore the unusual.
Mm-hmm.
They just dismiss it because they're programmed to do that. So that's why they can all believe in evolution, even though there's tons of science showing evolution couldn't possibly explain the amazing intricacy and variety of species.
Mm-hmm.
And how they've all sprouted and in different times and places, and sometimes multiple places with very similar sorts of phenomena and capabilities that can't be linked together as like a chain of events, like an evolutionary transmutation from one to another. They're just independently these highly improbable things just popping up again and again. So the data are all there. I put together a science presentation about this for a meetup group I have, and it's just amazing. And for the longest time, I just didn't understand why the scientists are so pig-headed and unable to see their own data.
Yeah.
Now I understand it. It's they're being held down. It's an active intervention and suppression. So I can say that in front of your audience, I think, because your people know about a lot of the stuff going on behind the scenes to hold humanity back, and that's part of it.
Yeah,
So
and
one more example.
yeah, some of my audience just is looking for information as well. They might know and might not know about it, but they're open. They're willing to be a little open-minded and to explore it. So I do have two types of audience: the ones that are really into this and already know, and some new ones just that are coming in, and it's a good way to explore what's out there. And I like to research stuff too and figure out, well, why can I do this now? I couldn't do it before. Like, what's behind all of this? To have an open mind to exploring the possibilities without bias or judgment.
Well, the reality of things is much more wondrous and exciting than people might imagine. Everything really is a miracle. It really is. The way the universe works and the way we operate. We kind of take it so for granted because we're so used to seeing people we can talk to and hang out with and do all these nice things with. But we're all little miracles, each in our own way, and what it represents in terms of changing energy into a sentient being.
Mm-hmm.
That's something science is striving to do, and they'll get pretty good at it, but they'll never create a soul. So there you go.
Yep. And I sometimes see outside of the physical, I see other beings, spirits outside of myself, ETs, and I talk to them. Sometimes I'll have a physical conversation. I'll be talking to somebody who's invisible, and somebody else will come up and say, "Who are you talking to?" And I'll say, "There's somebody with me right now, near me. We're having a spiritual conversation." And they're like, "Oh, can you tell me about it? Because that sounds interesting." So even non-believers, they'll just like, "You're doing something interesting. Tell me, what is it?" Even if they don't believe, they still want to hear what's going on. Like, why is she talking to somebody who's not there? So it's a curiosity that people have. All of us have this curiosity about stuff. Even if we're non-believers, we still want to know, what is it? Why are you doing that? So it's pretty fantastic to me.
Yes, indeed, it is. And you're blessed in having this range of sensing because it shows you an aspect of life that most people can't experience. They may have an inkling that there's something going on, and they may have a sense that, I think this could be true, but they don't experience it themselves. And it's hard when that's so.
Yeah.
And it cuts them out of the loop in a sense. So.
And I didn't always have these sensing abilities to see outside myself. It's just the last 4 or 5 years that I've started experiencing this. So for me, just keeping an open mind and just allowing it to grow as it grows and not hurrying it up, not suppressing it, just letting it go where it should and how it should grow on its own. No pressure.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Me. Yeah. So how does your channeling work? Like, how do you, when you start the session, what do you tell people about this?
Well, it basically is a divinely supported and engineered and directed mechanism. I go to creator of all it is. And well, first of all, I have a set routine to establish safety for myself, whoever I'm working with, for the duration of the session, so that it's protected from any outside interference. Very important. Many psychics don't do this. You need to protect yourself, even if you meditate, because you're making yourself open. You're making yourself vulnerable. You wouldn't open your front door at 2 o'clock in the morning and call out and see if anyone can bring you some useful information about X, Y, or Z. I mean, you wouldn't do that. But when you meditate and you want to reach a higher realm and get some feedback about something or see something, you might have somebody rush in you don't want to have anything to do with, and they will. So you need to know that you have to ask for safety and support when you do intuitive work. So I'm not here to add a lot of fear to people's day, and I apologize in advance but I've learned this the hard way, and I know a lot of people who end up involved with negative beings of all kinds. And what I've been told is that more than 90% of channelers are not talking to who they think they are. They've allowed inadvertently an imposter to come and talk to them. And that imposter will play any role that they want. It'll be a little kid, it'll be a famous figure, it'll be an archangel, whomever. These are typically extraterrestrial psychics. And this is deliberate too. They're trying to subvert the light workers, because the light workers, ironically, are the only source of danger to them. Mm-hmm. They have the government and the military in their pocket already in most of the society through mind control. The light workers have escaped, many of them, so far, from a lot of the suppression, and that's why they're able to do their intuitive stuff. Mm-hmm. But they're not invulnerable to being misled by an outside voice. They just sense or perceive, or they hear it in their head or whatever, and their guard isn't up. So they know how to, the imposters know how to send love feelings and send encouragement, to talk the talk, to make a good story. They're here to help. And yes, this is, Archangel Michael, or, this is Sananda, or whatever. And the psychic or channeler naturally is excited and thrilled, and they feel the sense of awe within them that's impulsed into them, and they're hooked. And once they go down that path, it's very hard to get back sometimes. So this is what's going on. So you go on the internet and look at all these channelers, most of them are being misled, as are the people listening. It's not to say you'll easily see flaws, because most of the time they will be telling truths. They'll be describing things accurately. It's just occasionally they'll be sprinkled in some disinformation for various purposes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes to lead someone along and keep them talking to the ETs and not the true source. So you'll never get a call to action. You'll never get a real suggestion from them of something you can do specifically to help yourself. There'll be very minimal kinds of suggestion. There's a lot of this going on. A lot of the spiritual people are being subjugated. So there's a sort of a happy talk community. All you need to do is be positive and work on your manifesting, and everything's going to be wonderful. It's all coming, and we're all going to ascend. And what it does is it keeps everyone complacent. Mm-hmm. So they're spectators now. They're waiting for the big ascension to happen, and they know that the divine realm's going to take care of everything. Or some people are told that ETs are going to come in and rescue us. Or there'll be a second coming. It depends on the belief system of the audience. They'll use any trick,
Mm.
consonant with the person's belief systems.
And I've
So
heard that love will save the day and trust everything with your heart. I believe that's true, but use your
yeah,
common sense to think about
yes,
whose love is coming in and who are you giving your love to as well, because it could be a
yeah,
false love.
exactly, exactly. And this is a good example of how they use imposters, because they'll talk about love all day long. They'll give you a tutorial on love that'll just blow you away because they know how to do that. They have all the boilerplate down. They can talk all day long about wonderful things, spiritual things, give you all sorts of encouragement and flatter. And then they might start dropping in that, well, you're really a famous person, and that's why, you're having such good luck in getting this information. And they'll tell you you were some famous individual that they know psychically you resonate with. And then, wow, then you can start going and talking how you were this person or that person in past lives. And eventually it gets to an extreme that begins to look kind of ridiculous. And that's what they're after. That someday it'll all blow up. And then you'll be left shattered and lose your confidence totally in your ability to do anything.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of games that they play. But love is important. Love is the power of the universe, and it is the essence of the divine.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a truism. But it's not only supposed to be us and our love. We need to partner with the divine and be on Creator's wavelength through love and holding loving kindness in our hearts, but invite the divine realm as well to come and be with us and be a part of a process of upliftment personally, for our loved ones, and for the broader society as a whole. Mm-hmm. That you won't typically hear from them, because that's what they're trying to subvert. They're trying to keep you just focused on yourself, or feeling you're still limited in some way because you haven't thought about being a creative change agent as an extension of the divine, directly partnering with them in a conscious way, even not maybe perceiving the interaction intuitively, but wishing that and desiring that and setting that intention. Very few people are talking about that sort of active interplay.
Oh, I definitely wanted to talk about that, because there's self-love and respect for yourself, but there's also respecting others and loving others and treating them with kindness, compassion, and understanding. Just not just looking out for yourself, but helping others in the best way you can. That's for the highest good of others. And sometimes, you'll have to back off and not help if they don't want your help, but to be open-minded to that, to not just thinking of yourself, but thinking of others. Even sending a prayer or, sending a good healing thought if the person is open to it. If it's for the highest good.
Well, what I have learned to do is to focus those intentions through the divine realm again. Because the divine realm knows what to do with it. And they can also amplify it on its way to the person. Mm-hmm. So this is something, it's a little complicated. I don't want to get a big, long diversion here. But there's two ways to go about healing and helping. One is to do it yourself with your own energy. Another is to do it in partnership and through the divine realm, primarily. Mm-hmm. And the latter has some real advantages. For one thing, it's more powerful. Mm-hmm. I mean, who has greater light, you or Creator?
Both.
Well, you both have light, but who has greater light?
I'd say Source.
Yes, you would be right. So if you ask Source to work with you to bring good for someone and do it through Source, Source will have the full wisdom to see all the possibilities and all the pitfalls. And Source will negotiate, guess what, with the higher self of the person for permission before doing anything. Mm-hmm. So some things might be agreed to, others not. If you send your energy into someone because you want to heal them, for example, you're violating their free will. Sorry, you are.
Mm-hmm.
If you're uninvited. And even if consciously the person wants your help, their conscious self might not know what's highest and best truly for them in terms of their soul journey, their soul purpose for being here, what they need to experience, and so forth. There may be things they don't understand going on behind the causes and the mechanism of their discord in the body. And it may be a higher level problem than you typically see for a sufferer with that condition. And there are nuances and complications and so on. So if you have the divine realm come in to work with you, use your intention, but then they're the surgeon, you'll get better results. So that's my philosophy and how I go about my work. Because I started down a path where I was doing spirit releasement first in my intuitive work. And then I thought, well, if I can see spirits in a person, maybe I can see their physical malady. So I started looking, and I could. And just by setting the intention, it's like turning to a different channel. Mm-hmm. And then you see what's on that channel. So I would look for physical problems and begin to diagnose things in people. And I thought, finally down the line, it dawned on me, well, if I could see it, maybe I can fix it. Mm-hmm. So we started fixing things. And I would see them change. And I would get some feedback that I was able to do some things. But then I had a wake-up call one day. And I won't give you all the details, but it was one of these things where I was doing something where I shouldn't have done it. And I saw something and told the person, and there was a huge hue and cry, because they didn't even know I could do that. And that wasn't why they were coming to me. And it was a big mess. But I've learned over the years all the ethics about this, and there are a lot of ethical considerations. And one of them is that you can be a bull in a china shop, sending your energy into a person. So I'm not trying to shut down all the healers and discourage them, but if you ask for some divine assistance along the way, they can help to shape and mold your energies and keep them safe. For example, what's wrong with that?
Nothing. They
can let you use your energy if you want, but be a backstop, and save you from harming maybe, so it's like an extra measure of intelligence being brought to bear.
Exactly.
So you can carve out whatever role you want, and they're happy to support you in whatever way, because they do this all the time with us. They let us have our experience, and they let us stumble and fall, just like we do with infants. They got to learn. And they stay out of the way unless we invite them. But they can come in and help, and it's to our advantage.
Yeah.
For big problems, we need their help. This is what I'm told. We can't do this shift in consciousness on our own. We need them to be assisting us. And because we got big problems we're facing. And so I know people don't want to hear that. And the one thing I would say is, this is nothing new. This has been going on for many, many thousands of years, and we're just here at the tail end. But we're getting close to the time when we're going to have that tipping point, and things are going to get better in a hurry. It's not going to be tomorrow, but we're working, and the signs are there that we're making advances. And it is all going to work out. Mm-hmm. There is no death. There's only life and life beyond life. We are immortal. That's the way it is. So you're all divine beings.
Exactly. We are. And there's so much to explore. I mean, we're here. We're doing this. So we're exploring.
Exactly. We have to come out from under the shadow and learn about the light. It's really kind of that simple.
Exactly. So, can we get into the channeling and do the questions and see what happens?
Absolutely. I would be happy to start that. So
thank you. And thank you for my higher self for coming in, and I want to know the truth and the honesty, and I'm open.
Okay, just give me a couple of minutes to get everything prepared. Mm-hmm. This is your higher self speaking.
Thank you so much for coming in and for being able to talk to me. I really appreciate it.
You are most welcome. We, as you know, are your best ally and best friend.
Is it okay that I start asking the questions?
Yes, proceed.
Why did I, Elena, become an asset in the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate for 60 years in the Quantum Leap time travel program on the Mars and Moon Bases?
This was essentially a co-opting of you as an individual and you as a force with a divine reach. The opposition of humanity can recognize those with high potential and capability and seek to subvert this. This is the reason for things mentioned in the prior discussion, which we were watching and listening to, and we do endorse, because you have some opposition and they are most keen to prevent people with intuitive reach from helping their fellows and themselves. So they will find various ways to sidetrack these people, preferably at a very young age. And one way to sidetrack them is to involve them in the cooperative, the extraterrestrial human programs that are running parallel to the normal function of society. This has grown into a large space-based program that is condoned, supported, and cherished by the U.S. government and military and intelligence apparatus. The primary purpose of this is a solely self-serving one. It is not to assist humans. It is not especially to assist the United States. It is to subvert their power by making them complacent. So you, as a high-powered being, so to speak, were a plum target to recruit and involve in this program. So this would give you something to do, something to dissipate your activities and energies in a way that would serve them and not enable you to grow spiritually, nor to contribute to the broader good. The secondary purpose of this was the potential to groom you to be a further ally in their mission to subvert humanity by enlisting you within a force of individuals who would have more of a control function and an intervention mission. And to the extent you believed in the higher good of this, would be an especially effective representative. This is one of the most common ways they recruit humans to assist them, by bringing forth a person who is totally in their control to interact with the newcomers and put them at ease and give them the reassurance they are among friends and that the extraterrestrials can be trusted because they know this to be so, and so forth. So those were the two purposes for you in this program. You were not advancing science per se, you were advancing the human program's awareness and growth to some extent as a subversion, as a seeming reward for compliance and cooperation with the extraterrestrial presence, which they want first and foremost to deflect any concern by the government and other authorities worldwide that there is a threat posed by extraterrestrials being out and about. So there is relentless programming to send the message they are benevolent and they are here to help. And of course, this must be kept secret because humanity would be too shocked. It would be disruptive to human institutions. People are not ready. It would undermine religions and cause strife and on and on. This is all programming used to justify secrecy, which they very much wish to maintain. This is the reason for the subjugation you experienced and the disruption with your memories as well, because the need for secrecy is paramount here. The program must be kept away from the awareness of society because there would be too many questions asked, too many who would have differing opinions and not be brought into alignment in being totally complacent. So the safest course is to maintain secrecy, and even from you yourself, as to the true intentions and especially the darker experiences that you had that would have been telling and would tip their hand to a neutral observer. It's one thing to be taken for a ride in a spacecraft or promised many blessings and growth and insight and technology of benefit to humanity and your personal prestige in being a close ally and representative who is entrusted with this important mission and so forth, and quite another to be subverted and turned into a pawn and to be subjugated and threatened and manipulated in savage ways. So this is the true nature of the beings you are dealing with. And at certain times, they will show their true colors. And only through keeping a person under a fairly tight rein of mind manipulation can they maintain such a subterfuge.
Was I mind manipulated a lot, and is this still happening to me?
You were manipulated heavily, and this is just the ordinary way of things. All is a manipulation with the extraterrestrials. The briefest of encounters will always involve mind manipulation because that is the first order of business for them, to throw up the smoke screen. And only once that is in place will they go further. So at the first encounter, there will be the initiation of a subjugation of the mind to render the person complacent and cooperative, but then begin the false narrative, the false sensations of beneficence, of calm and business-like orderliness that is benign and non-threatening and so forth. So this is the mildest level. The more intense levels are once you are privy to dark doings to make them acceptable, even in the face of what would be severe moral qualms in allowing such things to happen and to be a part of such a group. This is the extreme to which they attempt to manipulate, and one final end product of this intention is the creation of assassins they can use with impunity because they are human beings. and can be sent on missions to kill and have memory suppression of the doings and not have it be traceable back to them. And if someone fails in their mission, another can be sent. If they are captured or killed, they do not care. They have more troops to send into the fray, so to speak. So there was a range of intentions, and that is the inherent nature of the program, to see to what lengths and degrees of depravity will be tolerated by the person being manipulated. And that determines the outcome and their destination, so to speak, within the various options of the programs done here and elsewhere.
I had a ICC hybrid, human/reptilian hybrid assassin named Akinesha visit me, and also a Cobra/Nordic assassin named Laren visit me, also created by the ICC. Why did these assassins try to kill me, and why did the program send them?
This is because you reached a point where you were resisting the manipulation. And this was because of your strong spiritual connection. This, of course, was the reason to subjugate you in the beginning. And what happens to those who they take on and attempt to break, so to speak, is that if they are unsuccessful, those individuals will be summarily killed. And so this was true for you as well, because you had such a strong spiritual component that you were unable to suppress or to be suppressed and to weaken that link sufficiently to make you totally complacent and manipulable. So they were unable to trust you in the end. And then the decision was made to end your life. The reason you were successful was in part due to your innate awareness and your inner strong soul desire to be a light worker. And this allowed the divine realm to add additional support on your behalf. You did not do this alone. And there is an important message here for all others listening to these words, that you do not have to be alone. And if you reach out to us, all in the divine, who are eager to help you, you will be more successful and can do miraculous things.
At what age did I become an asset in the ICC?
This was done as a young teenager, and this was done in stages. You were subjected to abduction from childhood over and over again. And this was a process of preliminary evaluation and assessment and the beginnings of the manipulation program through implants and through sessions of direct contact with extraterrestrial beings who could entrain your mind and begin the process of altering your memory and awareness and closing down your connection to your higher self, yours truly, and the higher levels of the divine realm. This is a standard tactic, and this results in a further disconnection from the true sources of help available to human beings. So the ability to understand and receive intuitive information is dulled, and the ability to interact with the divine realm and receive support and guidance and inspiration is also dimmed. And this is necessary for the complete subjugation, to turn a person into their minion, to carry out any action requested. So this was a quite long process with many visitations and many sessions done with programming and manipulation to take you step by step further and further into their world, so to speak, and become used to their presence, and not only complacent, but looking forward eagerly to their visits, because they were laced with positive reinforcement to give you false encouragement that this was for a high purpose of the nature of a divine level mission to save humanity. And to a light worker, this is like an opiate that brings such great reward that it is cherished and becomes a great focus within the being to support and to comply with. So this ultimately resulted in your removal and the involvement off planet in a number of training missions in various settings. And this is an advanced stage where you made the grade to be a higher level functionary for them. And this was because of your capability to interact and your other attributes that would be controllable, so that the intuitive mechanism could be subverted and commandeered at their choosing to use it for the purposes of their intentions, but still controllable by them, so you would not use it for serving the self or for any other humans. So this is the level of corruption that can happen. This was never truly agreed to by the soul. This was a human lapse only, which is quite understandable, as you were facing the opposition represented by advanced extraterrestrial beings of high intelligence and many thousands of years of experience in manipulating human beings. They have been here for an extended period working on these projects in various ways. And so the problems you found yourself within and the aftermath, although it is disheartening in some ways for you, this is not because of your stature as a divine representative and a true divine being, nor the capability within yourself to do good works or any aspect of your character. You were simply overwhelmed in the end, bit by bit, through paving the way in a misdirection and a misrepresentation, and then a direct co-opting of your capabilities as a functioning human. There is no shame in this. It is no different than wanting to stand up to an anesthetic, but then losing all control and consciousness as well. No one can expect to withstand the effects of that kind of manipulation. And this is no different. It is just through a different type of energy rather than chemical. And so you were brought into this program and highly manipulated in various ways with the ultimate aim of serving them alone.
Did I participate in any other secret space programs other than in the ICC?
There were several side projects that developed. You were taken to a planet outside the solar system for a time and exposed to the project ongoing at that location as well. And this was yet another dark period for you. The ultimate target in your case was to be an assassin. The female beings in particular are highly prized for this potential because they are rarely caught. And this is an interesting tidbit concerning the law enforcement community's gullibility and level of ignorance about what is going on right under their noses. But many targeted killings are done surreptitiously by highly trained female assassins who are so cleverly trained and so skillful in what they do in covering their tracks. They carry out many, many missions around the planet and are rarely apprehended because they, as females, are typically never suspected. And so this is a clever utility that they have engineered over many, many centuries to have the human be the end force to be at risk.
I've had many trainings working with swords, battle axes, knives, handguns, also semi-automatic rifles. Was this training also given to me in the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate to be battle ready and to do battle if needed?
Yes, indeed, this is the case. The programs that are in place now and the plans for future contingencies involve having their own level of enforcement. The commandeering of the military apparatus is a complicated undertaking because of the high level of training and the expectations of the individuals. They can be subverted up to a point, but there may be difficulty getting them to perform to the liking of the extraterrestrials beyond a certain degree. And so they need minions of their own who are totally reliable to be in key places to carry out killings and to be leaders who will engage others who are not officially trained within the program, but primed to follow your example and that of others trained as assassins and warriors to pick up their weapons and join in. This is a typical human instinct, and it is deeply held within the makeup of human from so many centuries of tribal conflicts and so on. And it's quite demonstrable in all of the examples you see day to day in the media where people are inspired to march, and often there are episodes of violence, and this stirs up the group, and suddenly after one person breaks a window, the others are rioting as well. So the purpose of your training was to be an inciter of such violence so that you could be planted at a place where people were upset and poised to cause problems and be an instigator to begin a riot, for example, or some other action to impede the lawful authorities in some way, or to cause harm to a target that needed to be suppressed. So this was very much intended to be used against fellow humans.
I'm trained with guns and swords and knives and battle axes, but I don't have the urge to pick them up and use them physically. Have I been working on my soul to make sure I'm not doing anything bad with weapons?
This is very much the case because this is your soul alignment after all. Having left this program, you have had an unusual ability to be released from their grip to a large extent. And this is because you desire it, and the assistance has been granted by the divine realm. And we, as the extension and the bridge to your soul, have been directly instrumental in undoing much of this internal programming that removes these capabilities. So the main reason is that this is not something that is engineered through making someone a savage who wishes destruction and harm to others on a regular basis and becomes bloodthirsty, so to speak. It is an entirely controllable, robot-like level of response that is triggered on command. And it is the training that emerges at that point to carry out those functions almost without thinking. That is quite different, so that it is not done through passion and through hatred and violent impulses and thoughts. It is done solely as a matter of fact aspect of physical activity that is simply called for and appropriate and must be carried out without question and without thought and without second guessing whatsoever. This is to turn someone, functionally speaking, into a robot. That is the ultimate achievement if it can be done, so that the other human qualities are still present and the person can be a part of society and carrying out a normal human role. But when called on to be at a certain time and place and bring a weapon, they will do so without thinking about it and wondering why. And at that point may be unleashed, and their physical actions will ensue according to the training and the commands they are given subliminally.
I remember being in Antarctica, seeing various Atlantis bases, 11 of them, and also learning about the Atlantean technology on those outposts and being trained with swords. What was I doing in Atlantis, in those Atlantis outposts with the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate? What was my role in that?
This was a part of that extended training. And the purpose was to give you familiarity with a variety of environments and a variety of stages and levels of training and learning to have a compartmentalization of this function, so that you essentially had an alternate personality, and this would result in very smooth function without interference from any of your softer side coming into play. And so the training involved a rotation through a number of locations and bases and various individuals to work with you and to use differing mechanisms of control and manipulation. So there would be a variety of mechanisms available, and that could be customized and fine-tuned to understand your individual characteristics and receptivity, so that the very best mechanism would be employed in your case. And so a group of individuals on the same mission might each be controlled in a separate way, and that would be to their advantage to have the maximum control and fidelity of communication, to be sure instructions were given precisely and acted on with accuracy and precision.
Why was I put in the Atlantean outposts on Antarctica to study the various alien and human-like advanced technology in those outposts by the ICC?
This was, again, grooming you for an advanced role as a sentry and as a warrior both, because there are plans for humanity in the future to serve as slaves in various settings and branches of their colonies. And so they would like to have human warriors under their total control and subjugation to maintain order for them, so they do not have those lowlier duties to act as guards or sentries. So this was a sign that you had achieved a very high stage of development within that system, as you were being groomed for long-term duty, meaning that you had tremendous capability and would be of a long-term value to them in serving in this way.
What type of jobs and projects did I work on while I was on the ICC Mars Bases, Moon Bases, and the ICC Mars Orbital Space Platform Stations?
These were of a varied sort. There were communications done with the Martians themselves, former inhabitants of the Mars planet, who still are in existence and are present underground, both on Mars and on the Earth as well. And this was to give you knowledge and familiarization with them, and also to acclimate you as a potential overseer and someone who would be accepted and trusted by them, but who would still be controllable and loyal to the reptilian aims, so that you would in effect be a plant among them, a secret agent, if you will, that would be able to make things happen, to subvert their plans if need be, or to find a way to punish or prevent any type of opposition or resistance if they became unruly. So this was a manipulation and a further grooming of you for that type of duty. And it was done under the guise of a cultural mission to give you exposure and knowledge and learning, much as you would as any human ambassador in a situation or setting of that kind, and was done through positive reinforcement and the belief you were advancing and you were being even more trusted to further the cause of humanity in the interplanetary relations among various extraterrestrial civilizations. So that illusion was maintained through taking you to these various exotic settings so you could see for yourself that this must be so. And compared to a prosaic human life, these were wondrous sights indeed, and the technologies quite dazzling, and the level of stimulation and excitement that resulted from the exposure to these exotic locales and the technologies in use that you were busy learning and mastering became quite exciting. And this is how they do their business, through these enticements. This is the whole purpose, to ensnare people and make them believe wonderful things will be coming, and they are truly the chosen ones to be in the vanguard and to be instrumental in bringing wonderful things eventually forward for the hapless humans living in ignorance still about all these wonders and so forth. So this was truly a manipulation and a propaganda program. So we know that these are difficult words to hear, and your experiences were quite an array of positive as well as negative. So this is useful, we can see, because it is a warning to others as well. There are many actively involved with extraterrestrial beings, and they are all being duped. And this is a travesty and a tragic circumstance in every respect, because they are only creating negative karmic consequences for themselves, and to what extent they may bring harm to others will bear that burden as well. So there is much at stake here, and the beautiful thing you are doing in particular is to unravel the linkages and to learn the truth about your history. And this is an important step, not only for your own personal healing, but to do a much broader healing for many others who are being harmed and will be harmed by this entire enterprise. The figures are quite large already, and it is growing. To whatever extent you can bring the truth forward will be a contribution in limiting the future history of this program and the diabolical manipulation. It would be doubly tragic for humanity to be finally subjugated to oblivion by the extraterrestrials through the cooperation of many humans who have come to serve them and act instead as traitors to their own human origin. So we do not wish to see this happen, and we only mention it because it is a logical possibility in being confronted with an opponent of this kind with a dark agenda. We do not see this taking place, but yet there can be many difficulties along the path to resolving this differing view and the consequences for all the individuals who are part of the tug of war.
I remember that I had experienced much suffering and torture on the moon bases, as well on some underground secret bases on Earth, that there was reptilian involvement, also harvester race, humanoid race. What did they do to me on the moon bases and in the human underground bases with the reptilians and the harvester beings?
This was essentially a process of toughening. These beings are quite militaristic in their nature, and they prize toughness. They prize a warrior mentality that is cunning and ruthless and savage as needed. And they despise weakness of any kind. And so they subject one another to many painful trials. And this is a part of their culture and their own evolution. So it is natural for them to treat other species the same way in attempting to make them acolytes or pawns of their regime. And so they see that human is not this way as a predominant characteristic. And it is why they find human to be lesser, as they dismiss the spiritual notions and inclinations. They dismiss the idea of love as a weakness, and they wish to force that out of the people who they want to groom for useful functions. So one way they do this is to harden the victims they have collected and put into training by subjecting them to a series of graded difficulties with various types of torture and punishment, and having them observe the suffering of others over and over and over again, to condition them to a state of apathy and acceptance and a belief within that this is normal and needs to be achieved as a source of pride in being able to withstand such manipulations. So your recollections of being treated this way are quite real and quite true, and it is part of their conditioning process.
Werner von Braun had psychically contacted me from the other side. He had shown me schematics of how he was to build the ICC Mars orbital space platform stations when he was alive. What was Wernher von Braun's work on building the ICC Mars orbital space station platforms?
This was another make work program that was done to create complacency. And this was a reptilian plan that was used to entice many human scientists and keep them enthralled in the possibility of being part of a grand enterprise of that sort. This was never intended as a realization and a useful reptilian function and functional platform for their purposes. Their desire is to displace human from Earth and then to be done with the solar system for a while after their exploitation of the Earth planet has reached its maximum. So they have no great need of such a base. This was done to give a focus for the secret space program and a potential military objective as well, to keep the people who they were involved with on the human side, who were privy to their operations to some extent, keep them interested and involved and supportive of the enterprise, because they were shown the plans and were convinced this would extend their range, and they were quite excited, and it was yet another plum they were expecting to emerge from the cooperation between the extraterrestrials and the human military. So von Braun was co-opted to serve this function. So he does have a karmic stake in what is taking place now and what needs to happen to restore balance to the future for humanity as a whole.
What are the Mars ICC orbital space platform stations? What's their purpose?
This is, as we said, a make-work program. It is an illusion. This may well be real, but it is not for any useful purpose for human. It is an exercise, and it is similar to building any kind of impressive edifice. It becomes an achievement, but in and of itself may have only limited practical value. The story being given is that this will assist the Martians themselves to have a platform to exist and an alternative dwelling while the planet is being reconstituted. This has been promised to them, but it is a false promise. There is no intention to deliver. So this is only a temporary subterfuge and manipulation, as the Martians are being used as guinea pigs in the same way humans are used as guinea pigs. There are many reasons for this, including the harvesting of genetic information from both races, for the sharing among the members of the extraterrestrial alliance, so that the Greys in their endless quest to refine their genetics have more to work from, to accelerate their progress by using what is already shown to work. So those studies are continuing, and so the space platforms are another inducement to enlist cooperation with promise of great things to come. But it is a false promise, and ultimately the intention is to displace both cultures entirely and to eliminate them. This will not happen because the divine realm does not wish it to be. So there will be a hard line drawn about what can be done and what will be turned back, if need be, by divine realm. Insofar as possible, the desire is to have this done by the victims themselves. This is a part of the whole unfolding saga, that the fox has been let into the hen house, as a metaphor, and this was never intended or foreseen by human or by the Martians either. But this is one consequence of having the freedom to have dark thoughts, because it will put the person into a kind of alignment with darker beings, and then they may show up and want to move in, and this is what has happened. So the fault with human is minor, but the consequences happen to be major in this case. The cause is not at all lost. The cause is actually on the upswing and will advance further. And we in the divine realm are here to help, and very much are wanting this success. So you will receive much, much support, but there is still much left for you to do. And this is the reason you are delving into these matters. You could have easily decided to let this go as a bad experience that happened, and because of the unusual strangeness, never talked about it in public and let this be suppressed in your memory and just moved on. The fact that you are talking about this publicly is because you are also encouraged by the divine realm to do this. So this is an example of how we operate, that we can use the yearning of your soul and your soul mission to give you support and encouragement along the way. And this we do at each and every opportunity to bring in more light. And you are a fine example of one who has taken on the most difficult of personal challenges and has surmounted the difficulty facing you and have come out on top. That is a quite difficult thing to do, as many have fallen along the way. They are not gone. They are just out of the action for a time. You do have an immortal soul, but the goal here is to have something to come back to that you very much would enjoy. That has not always been the case down through history, but the change will happen to make it so. That is the goal, and you are contributing greatly in a personal way to hastening that day. The dark doings of the outside influencers in your realm, by being brought to light, will help to awaken others. And it is that collective awareness that will serve to turn the tide.
Werner von Braun had asked me to ask when the ICC Mars orbital space station platforms were built, and what is the message that he wanted to share with me.
What we told you about the platforms was the message. It is a message of warning that the loftiest of notions and projects employing human assistance are all a subterfuge and a misdirection to increase acceptance and complacency, and the encouragement to contribute and cooperate to fulfill your role. And most are enlisted with minimal effort simply by giving them the possibility to participate in something seemingly so marvelous. And then it can spiral downward from there. And so this was intended to be a warning to others who think about what has happened and think it would be exciting to meet an extraterrestrial or to participate in the secret space program themselves. This is a trap for them that has been set by others who have come forward with testimony about their involvement and their actions. There, for the most part, are people who are continuing to be used as pawns by the extraterrestrials without an awareness this is so. They still believe in their extraterrestrial friends. They may have awareness there are some good and some bad, but that is to make them appear knowledgeable and among the ones to be trusted, because they themselves do not appear to have drunk the Kool-Aid and be so complacent and so in the thrall of the extraterrestrials that those who know more about all the dark things would discount them. So they are being cleverly used by being misled in this way. And as humans, others can relate to their story and will find it quite credible. So this is holding back progress because it creates a diversion from a wider awareness among the public. All is not well. And so the many voices coming forward who purport to be whistleblowers are unwittingly serving the extraterrestrial alliance in most cases. They have not wrested themselves free sufficiently to be thinking independently for themselves and not be subject to ongoing mind control manipulation. So this is a very, very difficult challenge for all witnessing the unfolding of the awareness as to what has happened through history. Your account, as you are hearing, is an accurate one, but we know that there will be critics who find fault and who doubt you and doubt this message as well. This is desired by the extraterrestrials themselves, that all who come forward will have some truth and some untruths that they will espouse. And this serves to keep everyone in doubt and a state of confusion. So this is the warning that was intended here, that the extraterrestrial cooperation is entirely a falsehood, and no good will come from it.
I had etheric and Neuralink implants placed in my brain by the secret space program. What were these implants? Why were these etheric and Neuralink implants placed in my brain? What was their purpose in monitoring me?
This was a dual purpose. It was to monitor you, your whereabouts, your state of being, your emotional state, to assist in communication of your thoughts, and in a very sophisticated way to be monitoring for certain key types of experiences. And so this was a surveillance tool on the one hand, and a very sophisticated one, because it not only knew where you were in the sense of a type of GPS device, but would also know your intentions. And so it would know your deepest thoughts and feelings, and these would be transmitted on a continual basis and be monitored accordingly. So this is the ultimate loss of privacy. The other function was to do manipulation, and this was to set you up to be in Earth physical presence among society, and to be ordered about on command to carry out various duties. And this was done through the control of your being on multiple levels, including the ongoing maintenance of the mind suppression and subjugation to prevent the outreach beyond the self, and to limit what might be delivered by any opposing energy or thoughts coming to you to attempt to rescue or raise you up sufficiently to begin to oppose the manipulation. So this is very, very sophisticated, high-level technology for both surveillance and control.
Do I still have these etheric and Neuralink implants in my brain or anywhere else in my body right now?
These have been removed as you have desired this, and have been assisted by Divine Realm in their removal. So this has been taken care of. The only thing remaining of concern here is the alteration of your memories being in many instances highly traumatic and leaving the traces in the form of emotional wounding that can still be triggered and cause some discord. And these would be advantageous to heal somewhat further. And this would help the recovery process considerably. You have been through much trauma and much more than the average human being has had to endure. And this does not happen without consequences to the being. And so this is a tough lesson in how the universe operates, that even though you may be a victim, the alteration and victimization of you redefines who you are and is a consequence that carries forward. So it is no different than being in an automobile accident and having a limb severed that might not have been caused by you, but you now have lost a limb. And so it's the same with this wounding, even though it was done to you without your awareness initially, nor permission.
May I
It
please?
now becomes your burden and responsibility.
May I please ask you, my higher self, to do healing of this trauma and these physical ailments that were caused by the implants in my brain and body, to have this healed, please, so it's not causing me pain anymore? Is that possible?
Yes, there is much we can do with a direct request coming from you, as we have limits on what we can do unilaterally. All in Earth plane are allowed to have their slings and arrows, their ups and downs, their learning experience, and especially learning the consequences of their choices, good and bad. And to protect people from these would be to undercut their growth and the enrichment and strengthening that comes from taking on challenges. So it is no different than with children in school, where the teacher knows the answers and could give them to the student, but will not do so, and perhaps subject them to embarrassment and perhaps humiliation at an extreme, even at the risk of causing a lifelong dislike of learning. These are all consequences and fallout that become defining characteristics of the person as a consequence of a well-meaning instructor and setting. It is no different when the instructor is up to no good. The consequences still fall to the victim to a large degree to undo. This is just the way of things. It is part of how the universe operates, that once launched, the energy will have an effect, and then all other consequences flow from that new reality. So we will do all we can to do repair on your behalf. There may be some things you need to work with healers further to undo. And that is also very typical, because we cannot ourselves step in and remove everything. Some things need to be faced and reckoned with more directly by the level of the being experiencing them. And so that can be done through working with healers to do some memory resolution work, for example, but there is much we can do and are quite happy to assist you with this. This will serve you greatly to be free of these entanglements. So there needs to be a clean break and a complete break here so that you do not have remaining links and vulnerabilities.
There are cybernetic labs on the ICC Mars Bases where human slaves are turned into cyborgs by being in these cybernetic labs. Why was I a lab technician in those facilities?
This again was testing and training in action to see to what level you can be commandeered to serve them without question and without complaint. So this was done as a twofold undertaking. First, to see to what extent you can be subverted and trained to carry out work against others and causing harm to them and be manipulable to that degree. And secondly, to have you be a worker bee, so to speak, to carry out what they would consider to be a lower tier function and thus serve them and free them for higher level duties. So those were the main reasons.
Why does the ICC need human slaves to turn them into machines and cyborgs? What is the purpose behind this atrocity with merging technology with human bodies and human souls?
This is a kind of experiment. This has been done with other beings by these extraterrestrials, and the end product always differs as to the final product and its capabilities, its attributes, and the various value consequences to the extraterrestrials themselves. So this is first and foremost an experiment with an uncertain outcome. So this was an exploratory program to develop a group of beings that could be used in a slave fashion. And the purpose is to remove the emotional component, which is the troublesome part of the human being and the part that leads to difficulty with long-term function and maintaining control in absolute terms.
Why does the United States faction of the ICC and the German ICC factions, human factions, go along with this alien agenda of creating the cyborgs and soldiers on the ICC Mars bases and on the moon bases as well?
This is all a consequence of subjugation and mind control. These humans are led to believe they are contributing to an important cause and an important improvement of human destiny. This is all propaganda and subterfuge. At the highest levels of authority, there may well be infiltration by extraterrestrials themselves, serving as imposters for those who make the most important decisions. And most others are shielded from much information, and they are kept in a state of complacency, even though they are largely in the dark and simply do not formulate penetrating questions to rethink or second guess what may be happening, and that there is no forthcoming benefit as promised but yet they are complacent and patient. And in spite of the tremendous advanced capability represented by the extraterrestrials and their doings, they are not making any tangible or visible contribution to the betterment of humanity, and yet this raises no alarms. And the reason is the quite severe subjugation through mind control to keep people complacent about the many oddities and inconsistency. This is true across the board in all levels of human activity, where the merest difference between two groups or factions in politics or religion or ethnic backgrounds are reason for friction and discord and demonstrations and even physical violence in many cases. But yet the government of a nation making war against other people and putting their own citizens at risk of death raises no alarm bells at this juncture. And the reason, again, is mind control manipulation. So this is not at all what it seems or how it is represented to the humans. This is all a make-work project by the extraterrestrials to keep people complacent and to allow them to harvest individuals for various nefarious purposes, for use as assassins, as warriors against humanity, as slaves, and as lower level worker bees among their various projects. The very conquest of humans in this way is quite enjoyable to the extraterrestrials, being warrior-like and wishing power and control as the greatest source of pleasure. Having a slave operation of complexity and intricacy is fun for them, and they enjoy and relish every twist and turn as they make things more elaborate. It is kind of like a game for them to see what they can get away with next and get humans to do and dupe them into cooperating. This gives them much secret delight.
Werner von Braun had mentioned to me that it was dangerous to have these various space station platforms that are orbiting Mars and Earth out in space, that there's consequences of this. And also, what was the date that these space platforms were built and used as weapons? Can you talk about that a little?
This is mostly ancient doings rather than contemporary, but there has been a resurrection of this to do in recent times as well. And again, this is as a false promise to those beings who wish to be present in the Mars sphere. This is not a good idea. And again, the reason is that it is a false story, a subjugation, and a make-work program that has no benefit to anyone involved other than the extraterrestrials themselves who instigate this. So this is the hallmark of the extraterrestrial enterprise to start many projects going that have a false purpose and serve to dissipate energy, squander resources, and create much fear, and eventually, even with the promise of something glorious, when it fails to materialize or turns out to be harmful in some way, the eventual collapse is a triumphant moment for them in seeing the consequences for those they have duped. So this is an entirely nefarious undertaking.
I had been associated with the Notched Waffenregier, Night Weapons Roar Dark Fleet, when I was an ICC asset. What did I do while in the Notched Waffenregier?
This was again warrior training, and you participated in some sophisticated training with weaponry and various types of sensing and intelligence work and counterintelligence work that would again prepare you to be a high-powered operative. Much of this has been suppressed and distorted in your memory as they retained control of you for a considerable period in emerging from their clutches, so to speak. And so there will be partial memory of much of what you have experienced, and that in some ways is a blessing and will not be a cause of concern going forward. It is not necessary to recover total recall of all that has happened, as much of it was done while your emotions were suppressed as a protective measure for functional reasons, not humane ones. But to revisit those without the emotional suppression would be traumatic to revisit. So there is a balance in terms of need to know, desire to know, and the practical consequences and potential risks in looking too closely at certain aspects. For after all, these were not your choices to make. They were imposed from outside of you and are not owing to your true nature nor active, willful participation in a consenting fashion. So you do not have moral responsibility for any of this. You do have karmic responsibility because now you are wounded, and those wounds must heal for you to regain the level you enjoyed prior to this saga. And also there will be some karmic responsibilities from your doings during this tenure, but those will be minor because you were not willfully participating. So sometimes it is best to leave certain stones unturned, so to speak, and not be faced with what you see below. And this is only giving you some wisdom. It is very much an issue always with knowledge that the reach of the mind is greater than what may come. And so in the array of dark possibilities, the very worst usually does not happen, but yet the mind can seize on that and take it to heart and agonize considerably about the possibilities and the consequences to the soul. You need not worry about this because you have emerged from this experience with much more growth and advancement than in any kind of loss. to be sure, it sets you apart from the average person. For now, you are an individual with a strange tale and a bizarre personal history most would not believe. But this is a minor issue. What matters is who you will emerge to be in the future, and the future beyond this lifetime in particular. And that being will be wondrous indeed. The true grooming here is to be a star being throughout the universe as a pace setter and as an example and as an authority to understand and to create environments where these things cannot happen. This is the blessing in disguise here in all you have been through, that the learning gained will prevent its reoccurrence. And this you will see to as a leader. So we know the grand future that awaits you, and it is because you are standing on your feet now already that we can say this with such certainty. This is the task of all of humanity, to come through this dark period with the eventual awakening of divine awareness and the divine truth of things, to return to love as the basis in all thoughts and actions, but fully understanding the capability of the darkness to be a force and to not be tempted to take a dark path. This is the very difficult lesson of the dark ones that they have not yet learned, but will be learning quite soon. They already are bumping into the resistance and not liking it, but this is only a small taste of what is to come. You have a grand future awaiting you, and all who look upward towards the light and align with the light will be on the journey with you.
What was the purpose of me having contact with the Dark Fleet representative reptilian / insectoid hybrid named Zagor? Why is he still communicating with me on a regular basis?
You can expect to be contacted and interacted with again and again, as they will make attempts to recruit you and to gain an inroad. So there is always the option and choice for you to return to an association and working arrangement with them. You still have free agency and free will, and they do as well. And so they will attempt to entice you if they can, and if they can reinstitute a control and manipulation of you, they may well do so. This will be unlikely with your having a strong and clear and definite intention to be separate from them and to be free of any encroachment and any manipulation. So this is something you can ask of us to assist with.
Yes, can you please help me so that I do not desire to be in contact with any of these Dark Fleet associates, especially Zagor? I would much appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, and so we can do much on your behalf to take care of the routine mind control messages that are beamed daily to the entire planet. Those who are susceptible are in their thrall and will simply follow the orders. Those who have higher awareness are less vulnerable, but this is a starting point for greater levels of manipulation. So with these being blocked, you have the greatest chance of staying above the fray. And your conscious awareness is your great blessing here, because you see them coming, literally, and sensing their outreach. And then you can set the intention to turn them away. If you call on the light to assist you in this, it will help you greatly as well. And you are never alone. You can always call on the light and will receive an answer. And we will come to your aid and to your defense. This is the birthright of all. And the tragedy is that so few know the problem exists, or that they can call on help for such a problem, and their call will be answered. So you are truly in the best possible situation where you know how to navigate. You have the experience and knowledge, and you have the great desire to serve the cause of love and to be a warrior now for the good. And this training will serve you as well in being strong and ready for anything. And this will turn back on them, and they will be the losers here, for their tremendous investment in you is now lost and has only served to make you greater in the end. This, like so many of their doings, has backfired and will continue to be so at many levels of their programs, for they continually underestimate the potential of human. All they see as weakness are really strengths, and in the end will outmatch them. So the communication is unnecessary and need not be a source of concern or fear. These are just their attempts to call out to see if you are receptive and if they may be getting through. But this will not happen